Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile. Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, I'll talk a lot about what's going on with the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, the New Orleans Pelicans, and the New Orleans Baby Cakes. I said that with a straight face. And we hope to get to the Tulane Green Wave. Our guests tonight, two great panelists, have been with us many times before from that fantastic website, sportsnola.com, Lenny Vangilder and Coach Rick Gaille. Gentlemen, thanks for coming down. Certainly appreciate it. We are taping tonight's show, normally live on a Thursday. So want to let you guys know that if you're watching on this Thursday, we will not be taking phone calls tonight. Gentlemen, thanks again. If you would, let the folks know a little bit about what you guys are involved in.
We got a lot going on at sportsnola.com and WHNO-TV. Of course, my partner here is the co-host of Prep Recruiting Insider. I'll let him talk a little bit more about that and what he's got going on the high school side. But sports programming all the time. We've got some games as well. Saturday, in fact, we'll have the Tulane Temple game, 2:30 Saturday on WHNO, and on sportsnola.com. Of course, this is a busy time of year for the high school football playoffs. There's no better place to get your high school sports coverage than with us. Our scoreboard every Friday night throughout the football season, not just the playoffs. It's where everybody in the state comes to get their scores.
Yep, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's I'm certainly fortunate to be affiliated with such a great group of people like Lenny and Ken Trahan, Ed Daniels, and Renee Nato, my partner. We do Prep Recruiting Insider on Wednesday. This week we had the Carr Cougars, who are one of the best teams in the state, and we've had some excellent teams so far. And then on Friday, Ken Trahan's original Prep Football Report. We start with Countdown to the Original. I get to work with Ro Brown as well as Ken. And Saturday, the Three Tailgaters, and write for sportsnola.com. So beautiful. It's interesting. It's weird though to hear. Yeah, my partner here, Rick Gaille, is studio host. I'm going, where?
We've taught him how to be a traffic cop.
Yeah,
so
what a country.
You know the drill.
I'm living proof you can reinvent yourself.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Point.
It can happen.
What a country.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And by the way, my brother, a history teacher at Carr, and so happy you guys had the Cougars on.
Oh, they were great. They were really, really good.
Saints with a heartbreaking loss, 25-23 over the Broncos. Guys, you guys been around this. You're lifelong New Orleanians. You've watched this team since its inception. Have you ever seen a loss like that? A heartbreaking loss for the fans, obviously for the team as well. But in your storied history of watching this team, have you ever seen anything like this before?
Well, I will tell you this. Ken Trahan did a story at sportsnola.com Monday, and it was, in fact, the topic of our hot seat discussion on sportsnola.TV Monday nights at 6 on WHNO. Where does this rank in terms, or what is the most gut-wrenching loss in Saints history? You put this in the top 10. We talked about it, and I think the panel agreed. Number one on the list is still the playoff game 5 years ago against the 49ers. Just because this is a regular season game, and this is a 500 team. That situation was, of course, go to the NFC Championship game. As it turned out, host the NFC Championship game. And a lot of people would take it that 2011 was really better than the 2009 team, and that team might have gone on to win the Super Bowl. So, look, this is definitely in the team picture of the most gut-wrenching losses in franchise history. But I still think there's a few that you put ahead of it on the list.
Yeah, one of them for me was the original Big Ben play by the Atlanta Falcons for two reasons. Number one, I was helping to hold the chains for that game. I was at Chalmette, and the Chalmette coaches were part of the coaches crew, so I took Bobby Nuss's place. So I had a ground floor look at it. And also, that was the first year that two offensive players could touch the ball in succession on the forward pass for it to be complete. So that play had never been done before. So that one was excruciating. This one was very similar because it was something, even though we had seen it before from other players, we had never seen it orchestrated like this. And I'm going to tell you right now, Dean Blandino covered the officials' butts because what they did was not legal.
Expound on that.
The left defensive tackle and the right defensive tackle actually pulled the center and our left guard down to where they came forward and wound up flat on their face. So the guy did not have to make a big leap to get over it. He could just about hit it like a hurdle. And Blandino, who's the head of officials, explained, well, they had an open hand and they could push him down.
Right.
And I wrote back to him and did not get a response on Twitter, by the way. You cannot hit the center. When the center has his head down, you cannot touch or hit the center, but you can grab him or with an open hand, push him to the ground, and that's okay. So that was to me a clear violation, and it really took away, when you looked at it, the athleticism of the jumper. Because when we first saw it, we said, man, that's incredible how high that guy had to jump to be able to get it up. All he had to do was hurdle. That was still pretty amazing. And the guy's got like a 45-inch vertical. So that's but it was at the end of the game as well. But the Saints did not prepare properly for that play. That's disappointing, because the center's got to pop up to be able to take that. They're encouraging centers now on long snaps to pop up so you can get kicked in the teeth, is what they're encouraging. So that's got to go by the wayside. But then for it to bounce right to the guy, have him so close or actually out of bounds on the boundary, not have a camera angle where you could see it, all those things played into it for an excruciating loss.
I'm glad you said that. Okay, this is what baffles me. That was CBS's A-team calling the game.
It surely was.
Okay, Jim Nantz, Phil Simms, okay? Right. Now, it's not just broadcasters, but you've got your A production team in there as well. But there was no sky cam, and there was no camera running down the near sidelines. Keep in mind that when you have different production levels, as you go from A to B to C to D on down the line to Z, when Rick and I would probably be involved at that point, okay? When you make your way down the line, it's not, there's a couple fewer cameras, maybe one less or two less replay machines, different things that go away as you go down the line based on the percentage of the country that's going to see the game. And it would seem to me that they would have had some of those things. If you'd have had Skycam for that, they'd have been following him back down the play,
right,
and you would have been able to see that. Okay? But that all said, one, it shouldn't have come down to all of that. Right. The fact is the Saints committed 4 turnovers. The Saints haven't won a game committing 4 turnovers since the Super Bowl season of 2009, and they're 2-14 the last 16 times they've committed 4 turnovers in a game. And then I will also say this. At the end when we get to the end of the 2016 season, that will not be the most important block kick that the Saints give up.
Right.
I would argue that the kick against the Giants is more important because that was a 10-point swing, and at the end of the day, that game maybe would cost you a spot in the playoffs because not only did you lose a game to the Giants, but you lost the tiebreaker as well.
And it looks as though when you look at this season in its entirety and look back at this, you got to point at special teams because, again, the special teams, when you talk about the multiple block kicks, whether it be extra point or field goals, you talk about some of the other situations we've seen with the special teams. And I know there's been a turnover, especially lately, with, again, trying to get healthy bodies back there. But, I mean, as a coach, you've got to have these guys prepared. Obviously the Giants saw something in the Saints alignment, which is the reason why they were able to overpower that side of the offensive line and to be able to get in to block that kick. They had to see something with the Saints as well be able to get in and be able to leap over and to be able to block that extra point as well. And, the first thing I thought, guys, was that's leveraging. He's pushing down on these guys. You're not supposed to be able to touch the center. He's got to be able to come up freely. But obviously Blandino, the way he explained it, well, then I'm saying, okay, he's the head of the officials. He's got to know better than I know. But, Coach, you're saying this guy was wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the CYA. And what was just as disappointing in this, and you're exactly right, special teams have really been not good at all, but the key people that we're looking at have not changed. The long snapper, the holder, the place kicker have been the same the whole time. Thomas Morstead's been the punter the whole time. Now what's changed a bunch is that they're still trying to find a return. Oh my gosh, that's been a mess, but they haven't gotten hurt that much in the return game, even with the turnover. But to me, one of the things, and many things that hurt about this, is that the Saints are not a good team because they can never win ugly. This was the opportunity. Yes, there were 4 turnovers, but guess what? The Giants fumbled 3 times against the Saints and still won the game. You see it happen, I'm not going to say all the time in the league, but guess what the good teams do? The good teams find a way to win ugly, the Saints can't.
Well, I think this would have been one. This game turned on the first Michael Thomas fumble. It turned originally It turned originally on the Sterling Moore interception. The Broncos dominated the first half of that game, and until the last minute of the first half, until Moore made the pick, which ended up leading to the field goal, making a 1-score game. If that pick doesn't happen, we're looking at 13-0 or possibly 17-0 at halftime, and it's game over. Oh, by the way, did you realize the Saints have not gone scoreless in the first half since 2004?
Isn't that amazing?
Or I take it back, 2002, but basically before Peyton and Breeze got here, which is pretty amazing.
That's Haslett back then.
Right, we're going in a way back machine, yeah. But that was at home. They've actually done it on the road. That they have not gone scoreless at home. But that turnover bailed them out, made it a 1-score game, shifted the momentum, set the stage for the third quarter comeback, and then it gave it all away.
I agree with you because I'm watching the game and I'm thinking to myself in the first half, wow, well, this team has gotten better, but they're going against the world champions. They're obviously ready for this game. I thought that, but they looked like they were being dominant. I said, hey, sometimes you just can't hang, okay? All of a sudden that momentum shift, and then in the second half, when they caught fire, I'm saying to myself, you know what? They got a chance to win this game. And honestly, they should have won it. The turnovers, obviously, were a big part of them losing this game. I got to give Sean Payton a lot of credit, though, and a lot of people that watch this show and listen to my radio show know that, at times I've been very, very hard on the coach. This, I think, is his best coaching job ever. I think when you look at the amount of talent that came out of training camp, you look at the turnover in this roster over the last 3 seasons, you look at him trying to piecemeal the defense, especially with all the injuries. The offensive line, as I've said before, to me, Jairi Evans is manna from heaven. He doesn't come in. That offensive line probably doesn't have the continuity it has. But he came in and really wanted to dismiss the controversy with the stepping out of bounds, the controversy with the blocked extra point. He wanted to put this to bed quickly on Sunday to get ready for tonight and Carolina. And, I thought that was genius on his part as the head coach to just put it behind him, let the fans talk about it all they want over the next few days, but again, get his football team refocused for a division game. And just overall, I would say there were times in the last few years where maybe Peyton has been a little bit lax, okay, not concentrating on the task at hand. That is not the case this season.
No, I agree. One thing that Sean seems to do is he learns about his craft as he goes and makes adjustments. A lot of coaches are stuck in their ways about how they go about doing things. I can think of one that was just up the river who no longer has a job as of a couple of months ago, perhaps. But look at Sean Payton. His teams were struggling coming out of the bye because he was practicing his team during the bye week. Talked to Andy Reid, gave the team the whole week off during the bye, and all of a sudden started winning consistently after the bye. Thursday nights, his teams were struggling. Made some adjustments, basically went to more of a mental situation, walkthroughs, changed some things around in the schedule, as it were. And 2013, 2014, 2015, he's won on Thursday night coming out of there. Whereas before that, he lost 3 in a row, and arguably one of those was probably the worst game Drew Brees has played in a Saints uniform, that game in Atlanta when he got his touchdown streak, not only stopped, but he threw 5 picks in that game. So he's learned. And you look at some of those games, and really come out and significantly outplayed the other team in that game. Most notably, you think about the Atlanta game in the Dome last year, and the Carolina game in Charlotte 2 years ago would both fit that bill.
Yeah, he certainly has done a good job this year because you see the team improving, even with all the injuries and adjustments that they've had to make. And in 2/3 of the game, they've improved. They haven't improved in the kicking game, but certainly offensively and defensively, they've gotten better. So when we talked about this Friday, when Sean Payton is Sean Payton and he's on edge and he's got everybody else on edge and he's got a burr under everybody's saddle and he's got a burr under his own saddle, then he does an excellent job of coaching. When he's collegial, he's just another brick in the wall. Yes. And this year he has been on edge, so kudos to him. And it's going to be interesting to see how far the Saints can go with this improvement, because the last 2 years they've gotten to 500 more than one time, and then fallen off. Right. Let's hope that this is not the case this year.
Let's talk a little bit about Kenny Vacarro, who has had an incredible year. Has turned into one of the vocal leaders, not just on the defense, but on the team itself. A guy that's in a contract year, a guy that obviously is looking to get a payday, but the possibility of him being suspended for violating the performance-enhancing drug deal with the NFL. Guys, first of all, they're waiting on a second test as we're taping this program. It will be a huge loss, in my opinion, to be able to lose him. Because ultimately you're weak at linebacker position right now with the injuries that we've seen. He's played kind of that pseudo linebacker position when they go to that 3 safety. His leadership in the locker room, because if I understand this correctly, if you are suspended, you cannot be at the facility. Right. You're gone. You're banished at that point. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him going forward. I'm a little amazed they're getting these 2 games in very quickly, right. But again, you may not have him for the stretch run. What's your take on this, Lenny?
I think it's going to be interesting to see. There's a couple, as you talk about the safety position. One, I think having Roman Harper in that room is very important because you're talking about leadership, and obviously he's a leader in there, although you're not seeing him much, in terms of snaps on the defensive side of the ball, but obviously he would have to step up, be a part of that. And 2, Von Bell has improved immensely throughout his rookie year, and as a guy who could step in from a performance perspective and be able to perhaps fill some of that gap. What you're going to do scheme-wise, you're going to continue to be able to play that 3 safety look? I don't know. You might have to do some things differently in that regard. You may have to make some adjustments in that regard if this suspension ends up coming to pass. And you brought up a contract situation. Here it is. Let's say it happens during the course of this extended week here, and he misses the next 4 games. Well, you got 6 games left, okay? So basically, he's got 2 games at that point to justify whatever his next contract's going to be. Not to mention the fact that if he gets dinged for something else, now you're talking about a significant suspension. You're talking about at least 10 games at that point. Right. Is that how much money is besides the 4 paychecks he's going to lose? How much money can this potentially cost him?
That's a great point.
Yeah, and we're not talking about some exotic drug that he got from Bolivia within some nutritional supplement. It's obvious what. That's a banned substance.
Adderall.
Yeah, and it's it's stupid to be able to get caught in that situation. But the Saints are thin in the secondary. When they have everybody, they're not bad. Jairus Byrd coming back it's not a coincidence. They started playing better. It's allowed Von Bell to become a participator because now Von Bell can play both close to the line of scrimmage if he needs to, and they can play nickel with 2 safeties, with deep halves. Without Jairus Byrd there, they can't play two deep safeties because now your nickel corner's got to come in. Vacarro's playing deep. It just doesn't mesh. It allows Vacarro to be Vacarro, Von Bell to be Von Bell, even though Jairus Byrd has become more of a tackler than he has a pass defender. It allows those 2 to play better. Now, if Vacarro is out, that nickel position, which is pretty much equivalent to a Sam linebacker, they're an outside backer. They're playing 4-2-5 almost exclusively, 4 down linemen, 2 inside backers with 5 defensive backs. Now Sterling Moore becomes a key player. He's got to get kicked inside, but that means that Delvin Breaux's got to be healthy. And we saw him struggle a bit last week. He's questionable. This week's been questionable the whole week, as a matter of fact. It'll be interesting to see how much he's able to play. But if you don't have Delvin Breaux and you don't have Kenny Vaccaro, then you've got pass defensive 2 years ago, where the quarterbacks know where they're going with the football before they take the snap, and you can't stop anybody doing that.
Lenny Breaux really looked like he was playing on one leg against Demaryius Thomas, one of the more physical wide receivers in the NFL. Breaux is one of the more physical corners in the league, and normally, again, if he's full strength, whether it's Thomas or not, he's going to lock onto that guy. He's going to make it very, very difficult for him to get into his route tree. What are your thoughts on Breaux? Obviously, this week, both Breaux and Ellaby are questionable for tonight's game against the Carolina Panthers. It'll be interesting to see. I think they will both go, but that's up for conjecture at this point. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think with both of those guys, you're dealing with a bit of damaged goods, so you have to be careful. And I think they've tried to do that. And obviously, like I was mentioning, you got to take care in this week to allow some bodies to heal up. Right. But you're dealing with guys, in the case of Breaux and Ellaby, who have both been dealing with injuries all season long, have played minimal snaps this year, and don't the number to remember in this Thursday night game is 83, and I'm not talking about Willie Snead. 83 is the number of defensive snaps the Saints had to play against Denver. And now you got to come back on a short week, and you may see something. I'm concerned about the fourth quarter of this game. If this is a tight game in the fourth quarter, how this team is going to respond in that situation. It's not like college football where you're sitting there with as many guys as you want on the depth chart and being able to rotate guys through. You've got a finite number of players. You've only got 46 guys up on a game day. And now there are a few more on defense than there are on offense in that regard. But you have to wonder, I think it's important on the other side of the ball for the Saints to get the running game going and try to shorten this game a little bit and try to do things to help the defense. And it wasn't. I've heard a lot of people this week pointing to, they didn't get the running game, they didn't get the balance. They committed turnovers and shortened drives is what they did. The balance basically until the last drive when you had to go back down the field and you really didn't have time to run the ball. The balance was there. You ran 51 plays and I think it was 22 runs and 29 passes. That's not, that's not bad considering the fact that you basically threw the ball the entire last drive. So it was pretty close to 50-50 up until then. But you've got to be able to sustain some drives and run it, hold on to the ball. And, the 4 turnovers all came in the passing game against Denver. So you just got to get some things going. The offense has to be your friend on the defensive side. And that's a roundabout answer to where you were going. But I think you've got to do some things offensively to try and help guys like Breaux and Ellaby get some rest because that's going to be important down the stretch of the game against Carolina.
That was great information, honestly.
Yeah, the offense has got to help the defense. It's got to be a certain portion of it, and that's what the Saints have been doing. That they've been converting third downs because their third downs have been shorter because on first and second down they've been making progress and not when you look at the Giants and their poor percentage against the Giants, their third downs were long. The rest of the year it hasn't been. So the offense has certainly got to contribute because not only do you have a short week and it's hard to recover. In that league you need every second that you possibly can have to be able to recover. But now they got to go try to tackle Cam Newton, and that's not
a healthy
easy.
Cam Newton.
Yes, getting healthier by the week. He wasn't as healthy the first time that they played, and it certainly affected him. But at this point, it's got to be all hands on deck, and whatever you have to do to win, because the loser of this game is, while not mathematically out, is for all practical purposes out.
Yeah. Of course, Newton was dealing with the concussion, aftermath of the concussion, when he played the Saints the first time around, was a little tentative in terms of running the football. You mentioned something before we went on the air today about players that are questionable, both Breaux and Ellaby questionable for this game on this short week. For the audience, if you would let them know a little bit about that information, and we'll watch it tonight as the Saints take the field.
Exactly. Questionable is a sort of a new category. They eliminated a couple categories. Probable was one of them that they eliminated. They're trying to make each category more meaningful. Out certainly means out. But from what I understand, throughout the league, if you're listed as questionable on the final injury report, which we've gotten of the week, that few, if any, and maybe no one in the league has come off of the questionable list to play that week. Now, it doesn't mean that they can, But the league, when you put on questionable, if that player plays, the league is frowning on that. They've made it very clear that they're going to keep track of that.
Yeah, still out, but questionable is the new doubtful.
Right.
Yes,
So
there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a great point. Coach, when you put the tape on and you see Sheldon Rankins in the middle of that defensive line, what do you see it now? Saints got 6 sacks against Simeon this weekend. And Simeon, you got to give him a lot of credit, man. He hung in there. I mean, again, more than what I think most quarterbacks would have. The pressure was coming from everywhere. But, man, I tell you what, I think it starts up the middle for the New Orleans Saints. And Rankins looks like he has really adapted well coming off that injury.
Because there was no question Denver wanted to run the football. And they made the Broncos throw the football. Simeon threw the ball, I believe, 50 times during the course of the game and was battered and bruised and beat up, a lot of pressure. It's not a coincidence that the Saints have gotten better against the running game as Rankins has come back off of injured reserve. He brings an energy, not only talent, but he brings a lot of energy to the party. And they've got a nice defensive tackle rotation there in the middle with Tyler Davidson and with Nick Fairley. It makes Nick Fairley a better player.
I agree.
Because now he doesn't have to play all 80 snaps like he did earlier in the year. If Fairley can focus and get some turns and rotate it, he's a much better player. So as the Saints have gotten healthier, it's no coincidence that they've played better, that some of the players we thought they could be effective certainly could. Ellaby, when he's there, could certainly contribute, but he helps Nate Stupar. They're better off with both of them because Stupar's exceeded expectations. Yeah. Craig Robertson's exceeded expectations, even though we thought Robertson could be a player because he did play at the linebacker position.
But not many people thought he'd play in the middle.
Right, he was playing a weak side linebacker in Cleveland, but that's become an inside linebacker with versatility. So, but at least he played some linebackers. Stupar almost never played for the Falcons
until the end of last season.
Yeah,
when he had a few games
snaps. Because I went back and tried to calculate and try to keep track of what he was doing. So those two guys have certainly helped the Saints with their versatility. Once again, when the Saints have everybody, they're pretty good. They're at the top of that abyss of mediocre teams that dominates the NFL. You have about 2 or 3 at the top, 2 or 3 at the bottom, and it's like a primordial abyss of teams there in the middle that can morph from one end to the other. The Saints are capable of being in the top half of that, and at least in my mind, I'm not even talking about playoffs. I'm talking about contending for a winning season.
Lenny, Cam Jordan has had a really, really good year this year. You've watched him since his rookie year. Talk about what he's been able to do for the Saints.
Well, I think obviously until Sunday we didn't see significant things in terms of pass rush numbers.
But steady.
But he's just steady. Yeah, he is steady. He's going to play the run. He can get to the quarterback, and he's a guy that when you look at that defensive front, he's got to be kind of the leader of that group in terms of what he can generate out there. And getting back to the point about the linebackers, I mean, you saw the Saints sign 3 linebackers in the offseason. Everybody was all excited about Laurinaitis, and in most minds in terms of perception, Robertson and Stupar were kind of afterthoughts. So look at who's excelled, and look at who's on injured reserve and likely to be released here very soon, according to the report. So it just goes to show you sometimes we don't always know what's going to happen.
Sure. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE at 6 p.m. On Friday nights, a replay on WLAE at 10 p.m. and also on Pelican Sports Television. That is statewide, 9 p.m. every Friday night. Lenny Vangilder and Coach Rick Gaille of SportsNola.com are our guests tonight. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about the Tigers, the Baby Cakes, and the Pelicans, all coming up here on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or AmcoFenceCompany.com.
TikTok Cafe, located on Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie, is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our menu offers breakfast dishes like our Western omelet made from scratch biscuits, grits, egg sunny side up, and lunch specials like our homemade cheeseburgers with a side of golden brown fries. Don't forget about our weekday lunch special and that every Tuesday is steak night. TikTok Cafe, open 24/7 at Causeway South at the I-10 in Metairie.
Welcome back. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Lenny Vangilder and Coach Rick Gaille are our guests tonight. You're not going to believe what we're talking about now, but yeah, you can believe it. We're talking about the New Orleans baby cakes. The New Orleans Zephyrs have rebranded their AAA franchise here in New Orleans. They are now have changed the name to the baby cakes. It's not a joke, folks. It's not a publicity stunt. I had Cookie Rojas, the general manager and senior vice president for the New Orleans AAA franchise, on the program today on the radio show, and one of the things he talked about was, no, this is real. They're going with this, and I don't know if there's any coincidence that a guy named Cookie would rebrand the franchise as a cake, but we'll see what it is. Guys, I've on social media, this is unusual. Not one positive comment about the name. I mean, that's the first thing. When on my radio show, not one positive comment about the name. Talking to people on the street as they stop me, what's going on with this baby cakes? That's got to be a joke, right? That's a publicity stunt. No, it's not. Your thoughts on the name change?
Well, let me start with this. I've followed sports for a long time. I understand what minor league baseball tries to do, and they try to get off the wall when it comes to things. They're not concerned about tradition. They want to do some things a little bit differently because it's minor league sports. Okay, it's about fun, family entertainment. The word marks, the uniforms, the concept of using the king cake as the O in there with a crown. I like that.
The logo looks great.
I like some of the logos. I don't. The baby, as Ken Trahan pointed out in his op-ed piece on SportsNola.com Wednesday. What team do you know that has baby in the nickname?
I don't know.
I think you just gave the list. Okay, so that's look, as a lifetime resident of the city. In my mind, that's an embarrassment. And one thing that and I know, and as residents of lifetime residents of the city, we are attracted to what is our own. Okay, yes. And I mean, look, it didn't. I see people saying, "Why did you change it from Zephyrs?" I don't have a problem with changing it to something. Okay, but the fact is, you've got an out-of-town owner, an out-of-town general manager, and vice president, an out-of-town marketing firm. Where is the New Orleans input on this? Clearly it wasn't there, or else you wouldn't have come up with this.
They claimed they had focus groups, obviously New Orleanians that were involved in this. 4,000 people put in names, nicknames going forward. I'm kind of wondering, when the finalists came out, Night Owls, Tailgaters, Baby Cakes, and the outrage, the pushback there, why do you not go back to the drawing board? And I agree with you. In New Orleans, we are fierce about protecting our traditions. Right. And, I get, if you want to call them the king cakes, I got it. No problem. But the baby cake thing is it just doesn't work. Coach, lifelong New Orleanian, right. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're very provincial. We're not a part of the United States. We're our own separate entity, so to speak. We're not Southern. We're not Western. We're what we are, and there's nothing about this that reminds me of New Orleans. I mean, it's as we've discovered. Just go to the grocery store and you find out that a baby cake is an actual product. It's like a Little Debbie cake donut. Okay, so it's maybe they'll throw that out instead of T-shirts. I don't know at a game, but
someone suggested diapers.
Well,
yeah,
a diaper
might
drop.
as well.
Yeah.
First thing I thought was they could do a diaper drop.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, I guess there's some promotions that they could possibly do that, but I think Zephyr's merchandise really should go up in value. You hang on to it as collector's item, because I would have preferred them to rebrand Zephyrs, not being the Zephyrs that came with the team, meaning some type of wind that coming from Denver. I think they came.
It was a train.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a train.
And using the roller coaster in the logo and emphasize that more than anything else. They even have put a roller coaster out there in center field or some type of simile of one, because that means something. But there's 100 other things probably they could have come up with that would be much more meaningful.
The Marlins, the AA affiliate, also rebranded this year in Jacksonville. They went from being the Suns to being the Jumbo Shrimp.
Right.
Can we trade with them? Jumbo Shrimp would have played better here.
There's no doubt about it.
Although George Carlin would have had fun with that, because that is an oxymoron, right? Yes.
Hey, I like some Jumbo Shrimp, though.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
The organization is, look, we're talking about it. It's the second subject out of the box for us today. Yeah. It was a subject on my show yesterday. I asked Newell Norman about it on Tuesday, okay, to get his reaction when WDSU leaked that this was going to be the name. They got great push on social media. They've been involved in the 24-hour news cycle. How do you sell this now, this nickname, when they fall off the news cycle? See, that's, to me, is what's next, because the outrage is going to be gone. People are going to go back to something else. They're moving on. How do you sell that at that point?
Well, the question in my mind is this: is this outrage out there among the people who are disappointed in the choice of the name going to keep people from going to the ballpark? If that's the case, then they got a problem on their hands.
Or buying merchandise.
Well, let's face it. How much Zephyr's merchandise was probably getting bought? It was a 24-year-old nickname. There probably wasn't an awful lot getting bought out there.
But if you rebrand, you expect that merchandise to get off the shelves.
You may still see some of that, because a lot of what you see out there, again, what did they introduce? 6 uniforms yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
None of them used the nickname in full. Okay? There was one that was apostrophe Cakes, but everything else was NOLA or New Orleans. They had 2 Pelicans versions out there, as throwbacks. But so that tells you something about it right off the bat, in my mind. Now you can use the old George Shin argument about I want to promote the name of the city as opposed to the nickname, which is why he said he put New Orleans on the jerseys. Great. But still, in all, if the nickname is that great, why isn't it on the uniforms?
Coach?
I got nothing to add to that. I mean, we're laughing. I mean, I think that's the wrong things you want to get. It makes me want to go out and buy whatever Zephyr stuff I could find.
Well, let me lay another layer on this before we move on. I realize that the minor leagues are going toward more wacky nicknames. We're seeing that across the board. They're doing that. But does a sports organization have the responsibility that when it's to the city that it's domiciled in, to make sure that name is embraced by the majority of the fans and citizens, and they don't either feel embarrassed or they hate it at that point? And I think a lot of people are upset because New Orleans is going to be in front of that Baby Cakes.
That's my view on it. I mean, in my mind, it is to a degree embarrassing, and that you're going to see that attached to the word New Orleans out there. The ones that have done it before, you talk about some of the ones that have rebranded. They're not minor league cities, or they are minor league cities. This isn't a minor league city. We've got a minor league baseball team in the city that's got an NFL football team and an NBA basketball team.
True.
This is a major league city that happens to have a AAA baseball team in it.
Yeah, absolutely. That if you have the philosophy like we're supposed to have, that you can always do the best you can with what you have, and that you're striving for excellence. And there's no excuse not to be able to give your best all the time. This certainly does not make us feel like it's the best for us. Yeah,
I know maybe the organization has gotten some positive feedback. I have gotten none. And on none of my platforms have I gotten one positive comment. And I think that's something they got to take into account, and they should have before they unveiled it. But they got their 24-hour news cycle, and they got their bump. We'll see what happens next. Right. LSU with a huge win over Arkansas. No Alabama hangover this time around. Give a lot of credit to Coach O. Coach, you and I talked about it on Friday leading into the game. The scaling back of practices has really helped this team. Normally they're physically beat up after the Alabama game. They were fresh. You look at it, emotionally they were ready to go. Mentally they were ready to go. Got to give a lot of credit to Coach O on the way that team played.
They out Arkansas at Arkansas. Lined up toe-to-toe. When Brett Bielema came down, he wanted his teams to play like LSU played Saturday. You're going to be the bully going into the game, and you're going to maul other teams. And they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger at Arkansas, if that's even possible. But LSU just took it to them. It's remarkable how that team bounced back, how Alabama, bounced back, because that can wear you out winning a game like that. But they played beautifully in their game, and LSU just dominated the football team with using more and more players. I think that is just a terrific thing, and it's remarkable how the coaching staff has virtually played 30% more players than they had previously. And the more players that play, the better they practice. They see value in their work and their practice. They're going to get in the game and make a difference. It was harder for this team, in my mind, to come back and play this way against Arkansas than it was for them to get prepared to play against Alabama. Just a remarkable effort.
You're right about getting more players involved. I think that's been huge in all of this. The other thing, you talk about LSU with an Alabama hangover. Heard an amazing stat about Alabama with an LSU hangover. Alabama had not scored a first-quarter touchdown the week after the LSU game since 2002, I think it was, or 2001.
I did not realize
and basically under Saban, they never scored a first-quarter touchdown. I'd gotten it in gear late, but still, that's pretty remarkable. You talk about hangovers. That's pretty much the definition of
one.
Absolutely. And look, that game 2 weeks ago, I mean, talk about beauty in the eye of the beholder. I mean, it's. I heard a lot of criticism out there about the game, and it was a lot of national discussion.
Right.
Was this a good game or was this a bad game? Was these two bad offenses playing, or were these two unbelievable defenses? These were two unbelievable defenses, and they really took the other offenses out of the game for the most part until Alabama finally got some things going late. But for LSU to be able to bounce back, and we've seen it, what they've not done the last couple of years, it's just worked out that they've played Arkansas after Alabama and not been able to get anything going. And credit to Arkansas up until now, but credit to Coach O for getting this team back on point and getting the win. And look, now all of a sudden with A&M losing and with Auburn losing this week, if LSU can beat Florida Saturday and beat A&M Thanksgiving night, seems pretty reasonable that unless maybe Auburn beats Alabama in the Iron Bowl, that LSU is going to be the highest-ranked team, not in a playoff, and thus going to the Sugar Bowl.
Which would be a great end for the season that started off obviously stumbling, and with a coaching change, you don't really see that normally. A lot of credit to Coach O. The focus is on Florida, the focus on A&M for the team. We're going to focus for a couple minutes on the coaching search. It was reported this week by Jimmy Smith of the Times-Picayune that Jimbo Fisher has been contacted. That he's on the short list along with Coach O. There were some other coaches that were mentioned. I believe it was Larry Fedora, Tom Herman, Mike Gundy that also were on the list. Fisher's buyout, the same as it was last year, $5 million. He's got $44 million due over the life of the contract, which ends in 2022. Guys, Coach O is going to make, if he wins these last two games, he's going to make it difficult on the powers that be not to be able to allow him to take that interim tag off of his title at this point. But at the same time, there are a lot of people out there that really feel that this time around, there's got to be a top-notch coach. Can't settle for Les Miles. You got to go out there and get the best that's available. Lenny, I'll take you first. What are your thoughts on this coaching search? What are your thoughts on the possibility, if Coach O does run the table, of retaining this position, or maybe a guy like Jimbo Fisher leaving and coming to Baton Rouge?
It's going to really get interesting in a couple of weeks to see how this thing all plays out, because I really think what's got to happen is, if you're going to give him the job, you've got to pretty much, the Friday after Thanksgiving, you got to say, okay, this is his. He's the coach. You can't let it go on beyond that. And so we're talking a week from now. This thing's got to resolve itself. And I think that he's earned it. We talked about just a moment ago about how New Orleans embraces its own. Well, Louisiana does the same thing. And look, outside of since Jerry Stovall, LSU has not had a Louisiana-born coach. And obviously, I think the fans of Louisiana and of LSU have really embraced what Ed Orgeron has done here in the last 2 months. And is it enough to get the job? Well, obviously, these next 2 games are going to dictate. I think he's got to win them both. Otherwise, I think he's giving them an excuse to go move in another direction.
True.
But if he does, I don't know how you can't give him the job. That said, would I be surprised if he doesn't get the job? Not at all. Not at all. In fact, great roundtable discussion. You can watch the video of it on sportsnola.com Tuesday at the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation Quarterback Club. And Deuce McAllister said, and Deuce is not attached to him. He's an Ole Miss guy, but he's certainly he's here now and he sees what's going on. He doesn't think he's going, no matter what happens, he does not think Coach O is going to get the job.
Coach, what can you add?
The money people, the boosters who feel they have some influence, didn't get rid of Les Miles to hire Ed Orgeron. And I'm not objective in this at all. I really like Bebe a lot. Coached against him when he played at South Lafourche. I've known him seemingly forever. But he could certainly make it difficult for them. But when you look back at the coaches that LSU has hired in the past, sometimes you go, where'd they come from? Nick Saban was not a hot commodity when LSU hired him.
Nobody knew it was a genius.
No, he said, this is a guy from Michigan State. Is that Lou Saban's brother or son or what? Right. They were no relation whatsoever. And even Les Miles. Everybody's looking over here, and then, boom, here comes Les Miles from over there.
Right.
So they've historically kind of, Paul Dietzel was not a unanimous selection when he got the job way back in the day. That was considered an upset. So there's going to be a very strong outside search regardless of what Ed Orgeron does. But who's going to take the lead and say, if Orgeron deserves it, and I certainly think that he will because they'll play well at the end, will somebody stand up in administration and say, look, this is the guy we need to have. We can keep Aranda because of this. We can keep this because of this. We can keep that. We could change these things that you need to change around it. But you could have some stability while you're making improvement.
And that could be, be a big point in this is while Dave Aranda doesn't have the Les Miles clause in his contract like some others have had, with the performance of the defense this year could he be tied to whatever ends up getting done? Basically, are you going to tell a head coach that comes in, you're going to keep Dave Aranda as your defensive coordinator? We think he's too valuable to let get away.
I understood, and I've talked about this on the radio show. Aranda is under contract to the university, and one of the reasons why he came, regardless of whether Miles is on the hot seat or not, is because he got that assurances from the university that no matter what happened to the coaching staff, he had an opportunity to be retained. And look, when you look at the job he's done, why would you want to move away from him at this point? Guys, we debated it on my radio show this week. If Coach O runs the table, if he is offered the job, do you kind of take a slower approach to him, a more cautious approach? Is it a 3-year deal instead of the normal 5-year deal because of the problems he had at Ole Miss to make sure that he can prove himself? Or is that a slap in the face by now giving him the 5 years?
Let's put it this way. No matter, depending on whatever it is that you're going to do, everybody's on a 1-year deal anyway. It's just a matter. The whole thing is going to be about the buyout.
Sure.
Okay, because, conceivably, if he goes 7-5 next year, he could be gone after 1 year. That's just that is the lay of the land that we know. Big money college football has become now. Unfortunately, I don't think it's good for the game. I think it's almost become more cutthroat than, say, the NFL has in that regard in terms of, having a quick hook, but nobody wants to be mediocre, if you will, for long.
Are you jumping in the pool or are you sticking your toe in the water?
Well, that's the question there.
Yeah.
If
you don't give him the standard contract, that's, we like you, but. No, there can be no buts because anytime there's buts, it means somebody's passing your butt up. So, no, they got to jump in the pool full blast.
And the other thing to keep in mind is this. If you tried to take the let's call it the easy way and go with a shorter term contract, everyone's going to use it against you in recruiting. So that's
a great point.
And let's face it, that's the lifeblood. If you can have all You can have all people drawing up X's and O's you want, like this guy, okay? But just say it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Johnnies and Joes.
Right. Well, on the flip side, if ultimately he is not given the job, the people that I've talked to, he's not inclined to stay.
Right.
You're losing one of the top defensive line coaches in college football. You're losing one of the top recruiters in college football. You're losing a guy that's got inroads into your own backyard. Right. That if he ends up somewhere, whether it'll be maybe a possibly a head coaching job with a mid-major or on maybe another SEC staff, that sees what his abilities are, especially as a recruiter, that could end up hurting you down the line as well.
Yes, because he'll take players away from you.
He will.
There's no doubt about that. He is tireless. In fact, we had him on Prep Recruiting Insider when he was between jobs 2 years ago, and that was one of the questions that I asked him. Why are you good at this? Why are you good at recruiting? And it's simply that he works at it. He gets to know not just the kid, not just the coach. He gets to know the counselor. He gets to know every teacher that the kid has. Gets to know the friends of the kid and everybody. So he gets a full evaluation, not just as a player, but as a person, and knows everybody that's involved. He works.
Classic example of that. When the Florida game got postponed, all of a sudden he had a Friday that became a Friday before an open date. He was on the road throughout Southeast Louisiana, getting in front of the kids who had already committed or the kids who were, making a decision that included LSU, trying to get in front of as many of those kids as possible to let them know, hey, I'm here and I want to be here for the long haul, but it's obviously somebody else's decision, but still trying to reinforce that. And that was just 12 days after he had gotten the interim tag.
Right. Consensus between you two guys, if he runs the table, he should get the job?
Yes.
Yes.
Shift gears to the Pelicans. There's no consensus there, except that maybe there needs to be some movement in that front office. So we got some good news this week. Drew Holiday is returning from his sabbatical, taking care of his wife, who had obviously had a baby and had to deal with brain surgery. She's been in our prayers, and we're thankful that she's recovering well. He almost had to get back here. This thing was going down the drain pretty quickly. Tyreek Evans is now involved in non-contact in terms of practicing right now. I'm interested to see how he comes back, if he comes back. If he comes back, if he is going to be a member of this team by the trading deadline, or if he will be used as bait to be able to try to move him as an expiring contract to be able to try to bring in some more talent. Because right now, this is a team of Anthony Davis, and look, no disrespect, but a bunch of NBA backups. Oh. Okay, I mean, it just is what it is. They may have set, the stage for trying to bring in a Robin or upgrade the roster next year when they have more cap room. But for this year, it's kind of a wash right now, even though those guys do play hard. Lenny, I'll take you first. Dell Demps has had a chance to be able to weather the storm through George Shinn, weather the storm with the power struggle between him and Monty Williams. He brought in his guy, but yet he didn't give his guys the players to play his system. There were reports this week that Alvin Gentry is on a short leash and may be fired. I think that's very unfair, considering, again, he's not bringing the players in. He's trying to work with what he has. What are your thoughts on Dell Demps in the front office, and why no accountability for Dell Demps on how this team has performed, not just this year, but the entire body of work?
Well, certainly the entire body of work. You had up until a year and a half ago, as you mentioned, a power struggle with Monty Williams. Now, is he getting a pass for the injuries that are happening? They've been almost chronic, if you will, over the past, the Gentry tenure here. Mm-hmm. Right now you're playing without two of your three best players. Last year at times you were playing without 4 or 5 of your 6 best players. So is he getting a little bit of a pass for that? Maybe so. I don't know. But I think you need to see what this team is going to do once it's whole. And obviously getting Holiday back is going to play a part of that. With a back-to-back Friday night and Saturday night, it's going to be interesting to see just how they use him in the first 2 games back. Is he going to maybe play one and not play the other? Is he going to have limited minutes in both games? I'll be interested to see how they manage that. Rare, by the way. I think it's the only one of the year, Friday, Saturday, back-to-back at home. Usually you're at home one, away one, and
sure.
But this is a Friday, Saturday against Portland and Charlotte, back-to-back at home.
It's how many years do you need to prove that you can't get the job done? I mean, this team is this team because that's the team that he's put together. And you're exactly right. And I mentioned that when it was signing players during the summer. Said this guy was a backup here, this guy was a backup there, this guy was a backup. Now, the only way that you sign other teams' backups is if you feel that if given the opportunity, those players are going to excel, even though there was no indication beforehand that could happen. So Dell Demps has been given every opportunity. I feel bad for Coach Gentry because he's caught in the crossfire. Is he doing the best he can with what he's got? And the best part about Drew Holiday coming back is that his home circumstance is working. That's the best one. He gives the team hope because he is a terrific player. Yes. Tyreek Evans, whether he's going to eventually be dealt or not, gives the team hope. Hope is all we can ask for. At a certain point, that's all we got. We're hanging on by our fingerprints. Right. But Dell Demps just has not shown, and he's a fine gentleman and makes great presentations, but he has, it's a win league. Right. That's what pro sports is.
No doubt.
You are what your record says you are.
Yeah, look, you got to look at some things here in the offseason. I mean, granted, the salary cap went up.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden, that allowed you to do some things, but it also meant when the cap went up, a floor got instituted as well, that you had to get to a number, which meant you had to throw money at Solomon Hill and Eachwan Moore. That was, by the scheme of things in terms of your existing roster, didn't make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Then you go almost as an afterthought right before camp starts and sign Lance Stevenson, and he turns out to be the second best player on your team behind Anthony Davis. Right. Then he gets hurt, and because you've got so many guys out, you can't even get an injury exemption to hang on to him. Mm-hmm. They had to cut him. Right. Because they either that or they were going to be playing so shorthanded that would have been in even worse shape. They were trying to at least be able to free up a roster spot to make a move and had to cut somebody. So, that's the frustrating thing, is just putting enough healthy or active bodies out there to be competitive at times.
Gentlemen, at some point, injuries can no longer be an excuse.
Here's something. Both teams practice together. Both teams' facilities are right next to each other. Both teams are owned by the same person. Both teams are beat up through injury.
Well, not just that.
That's a conspiracy. I don't have a tinfoil hat, but there's my conspiracy
theory.
Can I
add to that?
Sure.
Both teams have mismanaged the cap. Both teams have had bad trades. Both teams, again, have overpaid their own players. And I mean, I'm telling you.
You're right.
It is mirror images of what's happening out there. Now, you can go, if you want to go up the pyramid and you see Mickey Loomis, you'll say he's the guy that's over both. But at the same time, we know Dell Demps is more the guy that's handling the basketball in. And look, I like Dell Demps. Dell Demps was a rising star when he got here. I thought they should have stuck with Monty Williams or again, swept the whole thing clean. They didn't do it. Dell Demps survived that. He's had a couple seasons now to turn this thing around. Ultimately hasn't done it. And I think ownership has to prove to the fan base that they're engaged and they want a winner here. And in order to do that, in some cases, if you're not winning, then heads have to roll. It is a bottom line business. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports. Coach Rick Gaille and also Lenny Vangilder of SportsNola.com. Again, make SportsNola.com one of your favorites. It is a website that you have to see if you love sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV. That's at 10 p.m. Also statewide on Pelican Sports Television, 9 p.m. every Friday night. You can catch me on the radio, 990 a.m. WGSO. That is 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. weekdays. Also on the TuneIn Radio app, which is a free download for your smartphone or your tablet. Also, you can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. Every single episode of Inside New Orleans Sports can also be seen at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to Lenny Vangilder and also Coach Rick Gaille, also to Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Kenny Juno, Naila Jones, Richard King, Philip Williamson, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week with the Thanksgiving edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. Have a great week.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is the first place award winner of the 2015 New Orleans Press Club's Excellence in Journalism Award for the category of Best TV Sports Show.